bare essentials. So
Let me be
legislator
clear.
will introduce a bill to either the House or the Senate. I know here in Colorado,
Man,
legislators
such
are
a
limited
stupid
to
bit. I love
5
it.
bills per session. They can only introduce up to 5 per session. Then it's assigned to a committee. If the committee approves that bill, then it goes to the General Assembly for discussion and voting. Let's assume that this passes General Assembly in the House just fine. Next, it would go to the Senate for the same process. Let's say it goes through Senate committee, great, Senate loves
Can't
it,
get
they
my
pass
queen out,
it, and
queen's
then
trapped.
it goes, once it's identically
Unless everything's
approved
stuck.
in both chambers, then it goes to the president's desk. Say the president loves it, signs it, becomes law. However, president doesn't love it, he vetoes it, then it goes back to the legislature, let's say, or back to Congress, let's say they really wanted to get this bill into law. It takes a 2/3 vote to override that presidential veto. Yep. You mean if it makes it out of committee and all that and it goes to the floor? I'm not really familiar with that process because even though he's the Senate Majority Leader, I don't know that he could. Jane, yeah? So the question being that are there checks, essentially are there
I
checks
want him
and
to take my
balances
shit.
within
I need him to.
the chambers on the Majority Leader?
Yeah.
Sounds
Okay.
like the answer is
Thanks.
not necessarily in that sense,
I need this.
but it could be political. It could backfire
I
politically
need to
if
free
they
up
were
my
too
stuff.
tyrannical. Yeah. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, they're all kind of intermingled. Okay, so Congress, bicameral,
Where
meaning
we at?
2 houses. So we have Congress.
Yeah, so we have senators and House Representatives members, right? And as far as how slates of electors go, I don't fucking know.
Congress is
I don't
made up
care.
of the House
I
of
am
Representatives and the
upset
Senate.
by the fact that this has been
Senators are
brought
in
to
the
my
Senate,
attention that we even need them.
Representatives are in the House, and they're all
Senate is the Senate,
correct.
but they're both called houses.
Yeah, chambers.
Chambers.
Yeah, sorry, that may be a little confusing. And then we can also call them lawmakers, legislators. that kind of thing. Yeah, it could be like if
I'm not gonna do
if
that
a
again.
Senate
That's
working,
fucking. That's so
sorry,
dumb.
if a senator wanted to introduce it and it went through the whole approval process, then it would have to go to the House for approval.
Is there a
Yeah,
fork I can
absolutely.
do
So the
somewhere?
question was, if the president vetoes it, what would the 2/3 vote look like? And it would be in both chambers. Yeah, there are kill committees even at the Colorado State Legislature. They can strategically put a bill that the majority
I'm gonna do this.
doesn't,
Fuck
majority
it.
leadership wouldn't want to have passed. They can put it in a kill committee knowing that it's probably not going to make it out. Yeah. By changing the rules of debate. Yeah, you're right. And we saw that when, right, with the
gonna lose.
filibuster
I'm losing
and the
too
going
much.
nuclear. Yeah, what that is so we're going to talk a little bit about filibusters, but
They're
the
not
rules were
banned
actually
yet. They need to
changed
be.
in the Senate that you wouldn't need as many people
Oh, fuck, I just hung the
that
knife.
filibuster to make it end. They lowered the number. They went nuclear. So they could end a filibuster a lot easier.
I'm losing
yeah,
so
you're
hard.
absolutely right.
He
There-
could easily
there
overwhelm
are
me. I don't know why he's not.
mechanisms within Congress to do those things, and that's kind of where the politics come in as well.
I need
I mean,
more
the people
water.
who get elected to Congress are very good at politicking. They
It's
know,
kind of their
they
job.
know the rules inside and
Oh.
out, and they use them.
It's like, how does that happen? How did I
That's what they're
fuck
there for.
that up of all things?
So the president of the Senate is actually the vice president.
That's
Yeah.
funny.
The vice president will preside over the Senate when needed. The Senate majority leader is just
gonna take
like
this.
the head
He's
honcho
taking so
of
much
whatever
shit.
party is in the majority.
I just don't have.
I would say probably the most visible person in the House would be the Speaker of the House. That is the person who presides over the House of
that's funny.
Representatives. They're elected within their own. They're chosen within their group.
Literally, his bishop just goes,
Right
here, my
within
my
the
queen is
majority party, the
officially
ruling
trapped.
Party in the House of Representatives. Yep.
Like, he doesn't even have to.
Yeah. Any more questions on this? That's true. Then we also have minority leaders. We have minority.
I still
whips,
can't
which
get
if
up.
anybody watches
I don't
House of
have any-
Cards, no. Kevin Spacey's character is the minority whip or the majority whip, and they're the person who
I'm so
makes sure all the
screwed.
rules are followed.
He goes
and
there, I
basically
can't push
whips
him out.
everybody into shape. I don't know if that's what it's called, but. Okay, so here's kind of a good graphic that shows what we just talked about. The bill we were
Damn.
discussing starts in the House of Representatives, goes to committee, yes, no, let's say everybody loves it, it's approved, and then you can see over here. it
Actually,
goes
he
over
can.
to the
He'll
Senate,
take.
do the whole
Fine.
thing
I
again,
don't care. What?
And then it comes down and
If he takes,
goes to
I,
the
do I
president.
get a queen or is that a pawn that I get? I don't know.
Or signs into law. There are a lot of details that go into it. You'll joke of laws are like sausages, you don't want to know how they're made. Yeah, go ahead. They're established. So the question was about committees.
It goes here.
They're
That goes
established.
not there.
I believe in
Like,
Colorado we have 7. Don't quote me on
I get a
that.
pod?
But they're established for very specific purposes, and they come back year after year after year. That's right. Sometimes the majority leaders who apportion the bills can be creative with where a bill goes, and that's what we were just talking about with a kill committee. A bill may get sent to the quote-unquote kill committee, and you may say, why? But they've obviously found some way to get that over there.
I knew this.
So, yes.
I do not know.
All right, so now we've talked a lot about federal. We're going to go on to state and local
I'm
government.
gonna do this.
The 10th Amendment, which is the last amendment in the Bill of Rights, states the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, not prohibited
why
by
he
to
did
the
that.
states or reserved
Okay.
to the states respectively, or to the people. This is the States' Rights Amendment. This is how I talked about how Nebraska and Maine can choose to split up their electors. That's because of the 10th Amendment. They have the right to do that. States do have a certain level of autonomy and control over
No,
local
I just kind of
governments.
lose here.
However, state laws,
I got
no matter how
nothing.
autonomous they are,
can do
can't
this.
violate the U.S. Constitution because the U.S. Constitution is still
Can I put him in
the law
check?
of the land.
Man.
Okay, this does typically mirror the structure of U.S. government. We see that with the Colorado House
Do
and
this.
Senate. Same.
I'm throwing out
structure
Hail
as,
Marys, and it's not going to work.
At the federal
I
level
promise you,
of
it's not going to work.
Congress.
There's
Still have legislative,
no
executive,
possible
judicial
way for me to
branches.
say this.
Executive branch in this case would be the governor, lieutenant governor. Judicial branches, we have judges at all levels of government. Some of the things that state governments are in charge of: transportation, public health and environment, Board of Education, regulatory agencies, Veterans Affairs, criminal justice, Parks and Wildlife, motor vehicles. These are all state agencies. There are 210 regulation departments and agencies in Colorado alone. 210. They regulate just about anything you could think of.
I must play it out.
Hairdressers are regulated
Must play it out.
in the state of Colorado. We talked about this: elected officials, governor, lieutenant governor, our state legislators, secretary of state, and attorney general. Okay, now we move on to local government. This is usually broken down into counties and municipalities. That's what we see in Colorado, but other states have parishes, boroughs, townships. Again, that's the beauty of states' rights. There's no, one set of vocabulary you have to use. Local government is granted their powers by the state because we have to adhere to
play
the
Crazy
state
House. This
constitution, which has
sucks.
to adhere to the U.S.
Ass.
Constitution. Some of the things that, that should say local governments
Like,
are in
this is
charge
terrible.
of: Parks and Rec, transportation, public works, housing, municipal courts, police and fire services, and libraries. Elected officials, county commissioner, clerk, sheriff.
Let's see. Local government broken down into counties and municipalities. So, I live in a county. County has structure, and the city that I live in has structure for some reason. I don't know why we have a board of. I don't even know what they're called. City board. We're not a city, but it is what it is. They're granted power by the state. Some things that state governments are in charge of: parks and rec, public transport, public works, housing services, municipal courts, police and fire, libraries, etc. Well, okay. So, I found out something that I think is pretty funny. Is, I believe, a place can't be called a town. It's not officially recognized as a town until it gets a post office. And the reason that I say this is because the place that I go, a place near me, they have a school, right? They have their own trash collection. I believe they have their own police. But they do not have a fire department. And it's just absurd to me of how they don't have a fire department. Or actually, they might have a fire department, but they do have a fire department. They don't have their own address. And I think that might be the big distinction, like esoterically. I'm not gonna say that. That's a dumb way to put it. I'm not gonna say esoterically. That was a stupid answer. Elected officials, you get county, coroner. I think that's more of like a PD thing. Mayor, city council members. That's what it is. I think we also have a mayor, so I don't know what the difference is. I don't.
Sheriff, coroner, your mayors, your city council members. And this can also include
Yeah, so school districts, from what I understand, is our school districts are by county. I believe, maybe. There could be like multiple. If you have a big enough city, you could have like multiple per county. Like a bit in a big enough county, you could have multiple per county. But I don't know. Health districts, I don't know how that works at all. Fire protection districts.
local government can also include school districts.
I would be surprised if I don't know what fire protection districts are.
Fire protection
Like unless you're in a really poor area. That's the only thing that I could think of why that would be shared.
districts and the like. You mean how Virginia is actually a commonwealth? Right. What's the difference between a commonwealth and a state? No. No, because that's so far removed from what we have out here. I don't have a lot of information on that. I believe that they have all the same rights of as a state, and we are 50 states, so.
Kind of like DC. Would DC count as a commonwealth? Is DC a commonwealth? It's a district. It's just a district. But like, is it a commonwealth? I guess what's a commonwealth? Like, I don't think that there's a people of a nation or state, the body, a nation or state governed by the people, a republic. Kentucky, Pennsylvania, and Virginia. I don't get the idea. I would assume it's just a word meant for unity among state members. That's the wrong video. We can watch that one later.
It's probably more than a matter of semantics, but I would have to look into that.
Yeah.
All right, so these are some words that you may have heard in current events recently. Executive order. This has been kind of a big one since January.
An executive order is just the president saying do something. That's it. It is an order from him to say we're doing this thing, and it can be vetoed. Right?
President Trump has been signing some pretty high-profile executive orders. Anybody want to take a guess on what this means? So this is how the executive branch can actually put something into law without having to go through Congress. Mm-hmm. President can sign an executive order, and unless it's ruled unconstitutional, it's law.
Yeah.
So you're in the conundrum of, do I want this to become law really quickly, or do I want it to be law permanently? Yeah, you're absolutely right. Oh, filibuster. So we talked a little bit about this. This is something.
Filibuster just means a law can't be passed until now. Now here's how it works. A law can't be passed unless it has a supermajority, or the guy or person standing at the podium stops talking. There's an insane one of this guy. I think he went for 20. It was either, I believe it was 24-hour long filibuster. It was a guy. Okay. Yeah, Strom Thurmond. I think I might have been an Alabamian. I'm not sure. Yeah, 24 hours and 18 minutes. Quoted George Washington's farewell. Didn't he read a Harry P. Long, 15 hours, pot liquors, recipes for pot liquors. Yeah, so it's either they get a 3/5 majority, which 3/5 joke incoming, or the guy just stops talking. I don't think you can have multiple people filibuster a bill, as far as I'm aware. And I believe that you have to be on the Senate floor, standing and speaking. And I want to say, I'm probably wrong here. I want to say that the way the filibuster works is that if you leave the Senate before the votes are counted, I believe, you rescind your vote. That's probably wrong.
Something that can only happen in the Senate.
Yeah.
And this is where if a senator or a group of senators are really opposed to a bill or really in favor of a bill, they can stand up and speak for hours, days, until they collapse, basically, or until they're overruled by a...
Executive orders are not laws. Laws apply to everyone. Orders applies to those that the executive has authority. Presidential orders to do or not do something apply only to the executive branch agencies. Process asylum seekers in Mexico and make them wait there for a decision instead of inside the U.S. Immigration issues are a federal function. Hence, the Pres can order federal agencies on certain procedural and policy interpretation matters. Executive orders cannot violate existing laws. Probably. This was a long time ago. A lot's changed since then. I wish we had constitutional lawyers who protected our rights, because the oath keepers don't seem to be on our side. Rules have gradually changed to ease the corruption. Every bill seems to be titled the opposite of what it actually is. In the 1,000 pages of small print, I would love an example. Yeah, any examples? Let me like this. U.S. government say is tyrannical. Yes, probably, but it's not. That's a crazy thing to say, because it's besides the fact that it's just wrong, right? So you had with the way King George, when the way it worked back then is you had House of Lords and House of Commons. They would get together and talk, and it was like only every 3 years the king would come in to listen to him. And basically, he didn't want to deal at all with what they said, which is why we have the current thing.
larger group of senators, which
in the
now
UK.
it's 51, getting together and putting a halt to it. The cabinet. What's the president?
Cabinet is the group that the president appoints. Usually, like cabinet can be multiple different
President's
things.
cabinet. Top level advisors, that's right. So this is the Secretary of State, Secretary of the Navy, Secretary of Education, that kind of stuff. So this is what we slogged through all of the confirmation hearings for President Trump's cabinet picks. Closed session. So this is something that doesn't happen a ton. Let me back up a bit. Everything that your elected representatives do should be a matter of public record. You should be able to find that easily if you know where to look, unless it happens in a closed session. So if Congress goes into a closed session, and this can happen independently in the House of Representatives and the Senate, anything that happens in there is secret, not a matter of public record, unless unless
just go,
they vote
boo.
to release it. It is secret. So this is why it's our right and our duty to keep tabs on what our legislators are doing. Congressional Review Act. Has anybody heard about this? This has kind of come up in the first part of
closed
2017.
session.
Anybody familiar with this? Sure. So this is something where Congress can overturn legislation from the previous session. They can only go back 60 legislative days. But this has been happening quite a bit in the current session, undoing a lot of things that happened during Obama's administration. Yeah, it's year-round, but they're not always in session. That sounds about right, because when they're not in session, they're typically back in their home state, meeting with their constituents and doing stuff in their state.
Okay.
I can tell you that here in Colorado, our legislative session runs from
Senate
January to May
House.
10th. So it just ended. So it's kind of 6 of one, half dozen the other. Either they're in DC all the time, they don't get to talk to their constituents, or they're home a lot and they don't get to interact
House of Representatives
with their colleagues
and they've done shit in their time.
work through some things.
All right, cool.
So I think we're currently in the 115th legislative
Was there one in
session, if I remember right. Just started. And well, sorry, a session is actually 2 years. All right, so NATO.
Whatever,
This was
dude.
in the news recently, right? So this stands for the North in the news recently.
Congressional
right?
Review Act. What was this again?
Doesn't the other. Either they're in DC. So this is why it's our right and our duty to keep tabs on what our legislators are doing. Congressional Review Act. Has anybody heard about this? This has kind of come up in the first part of 2017. Anybody familiar
I'm not
with
entirely
this?
sure, no.
Sure. So this is something where Congress can overturn legislation from the previous session. They can only go back 60 legislative days. But this has been happening quite a bit in the current session, undoing a lot of things that happened during Obama's administration. Yeah,
Okay.
it's year round, but they're not always in session. That sounds about right, because when they're not in session, they're typically back in their home state, meeting with their constituents and doing stuff in their state. I can tell you that here in Colorado, our legislative session runs from January to May 10th. So it just ended. So it's kind of six of one, half dozen the other. Either they're in DC all the time, they don't get to talk to their constituents, or they're home a lot and they don't get to interact with their colleagues and work through some things. So I think we're currently in the 115th legislative session, if I remember right.
Okay.
Just started. And
Cool.
well, sorry, a session is actually 2 years. All right, so
I
NATO,
don't get it, but okay.
This was in
She didn't
the
say
news
anything about the
recently.
act, did she? Oh, Congressional Review Act just means you can undo something from last time. Sure.
Right?
Within the last 60 days.
So this stands for the
North Atlantic, it's either North Atlantic Trade Organization or Treaty Organization. I think.
North Atlantic, I always
Treaty,
forget the
okay.
acronym. Oh, see, you guys know. I didn't have to cover this. So, all right. Somebody tell me what it does. Yep, Western Europe and Canada and the United States, I believe. Yeah, it's basically a military alliance. We kind of watch each other's back. And NAFTA, again, in the news.
North
President
American
Trump
Free-
wanted
yeah,
to
FTA.
do away with NAFTA. This is the North American Free Trade Act. So what this does is basically releases a lot of tariffs between North American countries, Canada, US, and Mexico, to ease trade, to promote trade a little bit
Yeah,
more.
no, that's a good thing.
Okay, questions? That's true, but legalized marijuana still doesn't mean it's legal. It's just accepted. Yeah, it's decriminalized, and the
Decriminalized doesn't mean that you can just have it. It means that there's not a crime for it, technically. I think it means that they confiscate it. I don't think you go to jail for it, though.
Obama administration made the choice to not pursue that. Now that could flip the other way with the Trump administration if they felt really strongly about it. Right.
was
So I think
7
you're
years
definitely
ago.
on the right
Never mind.
track in that if the Trump administration wanted to make that a priority, then it would end up going to the Supreme Court, sure. And that's when the state of Colorado could say, but 10th Amendment, or whatever else, what other amendment they thought it fell under. Yeah, that would be for the courts to decide, absolutely. So you bring up kind of an interesting point, and that's
What is it? I believe we decriminalized U.S. federal decriminalized. I think this is, its future is much less clear in the Senate. Did it happen? I don't know. Sure. Information. Changing. This doesn't tell me. This is this is misleading because I will say why. So I believe each state has to have a different each state requires you to have a different card to go there. So it's legal for medicinal purposes, but I don't believe there's anyone in Alabama that has a medical ID card. It's from what I understand.
that
No one
senators
has.
and representatives at
There's also
the
not any
national level
dispensaries
don't
in
have
Alabama.
term limits. They don't have term limits. They can run as many times as they want. They can be elected as many times as the people will keep electing them. And
Yeah.
what Senator Mitch McConnell said recently when the idea of term limits was brought up, he said, we have term limits. They're called elections. So that's where the people's power is. And it's a tough choice because, you know, the role of a representative and a senator at the national level is to fight for their state's advancement, right? To fight for as much for their state as they can. That's true, but the responsibility they have to their constituents to get reelected, that's what they're. Sure, absolutely.
It's 9
So the
o'clock
question
and
was,
it's
can we go over
Benadryl.
executive orders again? So an executive order is basically what it sounds like. It comes from the executive branch, and it's an order that becomes law without having to go through Congress. Yes, the
My
judicial
liver's
branch
gonna
is what
end
can
up
check the
fucking
executive
killing me.
branch
Probably my
in that
kidneys, too.
instance.
Another way
I wouldn't doubt it.
besides an executive order being brought before the
It's this person. Okay, I was about to say, wait a second. She switched up really fast. Okay.
judicial branch to determine if it's constitutional is that if the executive order requires funding, then the House would have to approve funding in order for it to happen.
I know that when an executive order is signed, it does have an effective date, so it may not go into effect right away, but it could be, you know, the next fiscal year or whenever. So yeah, they don't necessarily go into effect right away. Yeah, that's a really good way to look at it. That could be seen as a check against the legislative branch. If they're just not getting anything done, then the president can go ahead and do that. But they would only have 60 legislative days to get that done. And that's what we're seeing now, is that the current Congress is undoing quite a few Obama-era. And that can create a lot of instability because, you know, we have a Republican president now. If the next administration were to be Democratic, they could undo. It's not good for the country to constantly be ping-ponging back and forth. So that's exactly what I was talking about, the struggle for every elected official to get as much as he or she can for their state to take home to their constituents. That's where a lot of earmarking and pork spending comes in. The question was, at one point, Weld County wanted to secede and become the 51st state. Yeah, there was some truth that there was a campaign for that. And that's not the first. There have been multiple campaigns in our history, and they never go anywhere. For secession, sure. Well, West Virginia seceded from Virginia, so I guess that happened. But, well, yeah. The biggest example being the Civil War. That didn't work either. Guam and the U.S. Virgin Islands, they can vote. They don't have representation in Congress, but they can vote. No, but they have popular vote. That's honestly, in Puerto Rico, that's a question that's been going on for a long time, and it comes down to the people of Puerto Rico.
I was talking to this person in chat that's not even here anymore, even though his name is Mortimer is here. That's kind of funny. But I was explaining to him what I'm doing, and he's not even here. So it's fine. It's a-o good. I don't know how wait, how long ago was this? Will it show? No. All right, you know, that's fine. I have one more to watch, and then I guess I'll call it for tonight. I don't really have like anything big planned. I have a big day tomorrow, so I'd like to cut it fairly short. All right, give me a second, and oh wait, I can show you right here. This guy. Mortimer is here. He said hello. Thank you for saying hello. I know I didn't get to you right away, but it's always appreciated.
Online course. So today we're going to discuss where I left you. Last class we talked about civil liberties and civil rights.
It's the same guy.
This class,
Wait, he's
we're
super
going to
fucking loud.
focus on media and public opinion.
Let me turn it down
I'm going
just
to
a
do
bit more.
both the segments of the week together in one video.
All right, sweet.
So you could divide that and
Yeah.
watch it at your convenience. Okay, let's start with public opinion. What is public opinion? Public opinion is we all have individual opinions, right? So if I ask you, do you believe in gun control or you believe in the right to bear arms? That's your individual opinion. Or in any other issue you could take. How about climate change? Do you believe climate change or you think it's a hoax? It's an individual opinion of you. Collectively, when we sum up the individual opinions of everyone in this country, that's the American public opinion. And now I will tell you how to measure that and where public opinion comes from, all those details in this lecture. The first they're talking about. So if the government do, because there are very wealthy billionaires in this country who actually would pay tax increase. So predicted exactly by selectively. I'll give you an example, then you would understand what I'm talking about. And reduce climate change. So individual political party, if you know that, you could predict exactly how
Damn, I just
group of people, individual opinions.
That's
and the
funny.
group of people.
It's funny.
Third factor, which, for example, if you ask, we got to legalize marijuana and gender. Let's ask this question in polling. How about killing terrorists using drone programs? Who do you think conduct? And white people tend to feel more comfortable around police officers than black people. They feel safer. That's a higher percentage of blacks feel afraid of police. So that shows that public opinion could be predicted using demographics. Okay, so now we talked about sources of public opinion.
That's a smart one.
Which is demographics.
I like it.
Poverty,
Mad respect.
right? And also we talked about in the beginning self-interest. And the next one is war. War can change public opinion dramatically. I'll give you a couple of examples. When World War II was happening, Britain was begging America to come and help them. FDR felt he couldn't help Churchill. Why? Because Americans were in an isolationistic mood. They felt government to fight the war. They even called it a good
Adopt. Fuck yes.
However,
I'm so
9/11
happy.
happened, 90% of Americans got behind the president and supported his invasion of Afghanistan to avenge the terrorists. Now you might ask, how does that change public opinion in overnight? Well, when we are divided as Republicans and Democrats, conservatives and liberals inside the home, but when an external enemy comes and attacks us, that
Hoorah.
completely changes.
Yes.
Unite.
US, yes.
Okay. Media elite, say for example, Vietnam and media support started and changed their public opinion
Here
in 36
gets in.
to collect data and